Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jason Onesto. I am the Assistant Director of New Student Programs here at the University of Richmond. I am joined by some folks who I will let introduce themselves here in just a minute from our Office of Disability Services. Just a quick housekeeping note before we get started. You will notice that there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or at least there should be. Feel free to enter questions at any point in time as the content's being delivered this evening. Otherwise, there will be a time at the end of the webinar for you to ask any specific questions you may have, and we'll be happy to answer any questions then. Without further ado, I'm going to hand things off to Court and Julia.
Thank you so much, and super excited to do this. It's always an exciting time of year, I know, for Julia and myself, as we have incoming first years coming in and the excitement of being at college, and also a little bit of the trepidation as you transition from the K through 12 setting to a new place, also a new environment, and you're worried possibly about getting accommodations. I'm the director of the Office of Disability Services here at Richmond. It'll be 3 years for me in May, actually. It would have been, I think, 3 years, May 10th this year. So this is my third go round. We'll be talking to you about how to apply and get accommodations. And our philosophy is always from this point on, if you're not in our office enough to bother us, you're not in our office enough. We love what we do. That's a little bit about myself. I'll let Julia Kelly, our wonderful accessibility specialist, introduce herself before I get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation.
Thanks, Dr. Schneider. Hello to everyone watching this live and later on. We're so thrilled that we have new spiders coming our way this fall. I'm the accessibility specialist in our Office of Disability Services. I am an alumna of the University of Richmond. I got a Master's of Liberal Arts here. I've been working here for 20 years and I'm in my fourth year in disability services. And so I am definitely in a qualified position to say that this is an incredibly special place and we're thrilled to be even a small part of your journey here or a large part, whatever works best for each person. So welcome, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Schneider. While Dr. Schneider presents, I will be managing the Q&A, so please don't feel like you have to wait until Dr. Schneider is done speaking to have your questions fielded.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Julia. So let me start by saying that in order to qualify for our services, you have to have a physical or medical impairment that substantially limits a major life activity. This can be a lot of things. So a lot of people wonder, well, what qualifies? So this can be anything from ADHD, which is among our most common disabilities. This can be learning disabilities like dyslexia. This can be anxiety, panic attacks, depression, those kind of things as well. Also, something people don't think about, food allergies or any kind of allergies that substantially impact. So those are things to think about as well as physical disabilities, which is something I have. I was born with cerebral palsy. It's kind of how this work found me as a person with a disability. So those are some of the things that qualify. So let me walk you through the process of how it is that if you want or feel like you need accommodations, how that process works. The really awesome part about the way that it works, we're covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. What that means is it is the responsibility of the student to reach out to us to let us know that you want accommodations. Because the cool part about the Americans with Disabilities Act is you get to choose to use the accommodations as the person with a disability, or if you're a parent watching your son or daughter, gets gets to experience or have the disability piece of it, but they don't have to. They get to choose to do it. So what I always say is with great power comes great responsibility. So in order to get the accommodations, you actually have to apply for them first. And so the first step is going to our website, which is disability.richmond.edu, and there's an apply for accommodations tab that you will go and you can fill out the application online. And when you complete that, that takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And we really want you and the student to fill out a pretty comprehensive narrative about the various ways that your disability, whether that's ADHD, whether that's learning disabilities, whether that's chronic health, whatever it is, we want you to talk about in that application about how the disability impacts you on a day-to-day basis, right? And you can upload any documentation. We want documentation that shows current impact of the disability, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be recent. It doesn't have to be 6 months old to qualify. It just has to demonstrate current impact. So, for example, somebody that has chronic health like migraines might have something that's 2 or 3 years old that might be sufficient. Or somebody with dyslexia might have something from when they were in ninth or 10th grade. And we're going to look at that documentation. If they have an IEP, if they have a 504, they can upload that in the application when they complete it, right? And so now, just completing the application doesn't mean that you now have accommodations. Completing the application is the first and a necessary step, but it is not a sufficient step. There's another step. So then, once you complete the application and you upload your documentation that demonstrates current impact of the disability or the history of accommodations that you may have had in the K through 12 setting, then you will meet with either myself or Julia based on the kinds of accommodations that you would apply for. So if you're applying for things like housing or priority registration, or any kind of language, foreign language course substitution. Those would generally come to me as the director. I handle those things. If you're applying for, note taking, testing in the class, those kind of things, a lot of those will go to Julia. So once you fill out the application, you will then have the opportunity to schedule a meeting with us where we actually look at your documentation. We look at the narrative of that application. That's why that application is really important. And we make a determination about the accommodations that are reasonable, necessary, and appropriate. Now, if you've had accommodations in the past, like extra time on test or assistance with note taking or books in alternative formats, we're going to look at that history and we're going to try to match up the accommodations that are appropriate. Some people will ask the question, do my accommodations transfer from high school? It's not that they transfer. What we're doing is we may use the documentation that you've had from your high school experience or that you have from your doctor to determine what accommodations would apply under the Americans with Disabilities Act and would apply in the higher education setting. And the framework that we use is accommodations that are reasonable, necessary, and appropriate. And so we then have a meeting, and during that meeting can last anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. It depends on the kinds of accommodations that are being requested, the complexity of those accommodations that are being requested, and we have a meeting, and then we determine the accommodation process, and we walk the students through that process. One thing I want to stress, and I know Julia would back me up on this, we want your student to meet with us as soon as possible. Yes, classes don't start till August, and certainly we'll meet with people in June, July, or August, obviously, but the sooner we can meet with your student or the student, and get your accommodations in place, the better. We are meeting with students now. I know I've had a couple last week. I think Julia has also met with some incoming new students already. And so we are already meeting with people to get the accommodations established. We can meet over Zoom. The meetings can take place over Zoom. So that's not a problem because, again, our application and our process is virtual. So that's a nice piece of it. So you do not have to wait until you're here, and we'll walk you through the process of how you notify your professors, what we call the disability accommodation notice, which is a letter that you have to give to your professors at the beginning of every term. One of the reasons that I'm stressing meeting with us early on, it's important to understand that in the college ranks, accommodations are never retroactive. What does that mean? It means that every semester, it is your responsibility to notify your faculty or whoever that you need the accommodation, and the accommodations don't occur until you've gone through the process with us and notified your professors. So the very first step before you can notify your professors is to go through us. You can't notify your professors that you're entitled to accommodations until you've actually gone through the process with us. So we definitely want you to do that. Also, I want to stress is today May 20th, I think. The deadline, if you are wanting to explore housing for incoming first years, for priority housing for incoming first years, is June 1st, and that we have a housing accommodations committee that evaluates on a monthly basis the reasonable, necessary, and appropriate housing accommodations that might occur. So these can be anything from emotional support animals that might live with a student in housing, or single rooms, or access to bathrooms. Any kind of housing related accommodation has got to go through that housing accommodations process. And that deadline of June 1st is a really important deadline. So if you're listening to this and you want housing accommodations and you have yet to apply for those, please do that in the next week before that June 1st deadline. Again, um, we will always adjudicate and evaluate requests, but it is important to try to meet those deadlines, because the thing about housing is we can never guarantee availability of housing accommodations. That's just not something we can guarantee. The space kind of is what it is. So meeting those deadlines is a really important part of the process. The other thing I want to say is that the application and then the process of meeting with us is just the first step of our interaction with our office. I think Julia would agree that the most common accommodation we have is testing accommodations. The majority of our students have some sort of testing accommodation, and we have a testing center and we have a testing proctor named Jasmine, who's incredible, who works during the school year and helps us proctor exams, and we do a lot of testing accommodations. Um, and so that's one of our most common accommodations. So if you've got extra time on test or distraction reduced environment on the ACT, SAT, any of those kind of things, we provide that. And we've got an awesome staff, including Jasmine, our testing proctor, does an amazing job, Julia and myself, and other people within our division who also help us out when needed when we get those really busy times. And we'll walk through that process. But just know that the beginning process of doing the intake with us and meeting with us is really the start of a relationship that's going to exist for the next 4 years, right? And the one thing I want to stress is that if you are having issues, assume we don't know unless you tell us, right? What we want to do is to build a successful, ongoing relationship where you feel comfortable as the student coming to us and saying, I'm having an issue, and we can then address that issue as soon as possible. We can work with your faculty or whoever it is to try to figure out whatever the complexities of the accommodation are. But we want you to feel comfortable and understand that at any time you can request that you get, if you feel like you need more accommodations than you've had originally, or your disability changes over time, which sometimes can happen with chronic health or anxiety and depression. We can always re-evaluate or explore the possibility of new accommodations. And so that first meeting is just really the beginning of what we consider an ongoing relationship. And I think Julia would agree with me that one of the most rewarding parts about the job for us is the ongoing relationships that we have. I know that May, for example, is always a bittersweet time, is that we, get hugs and thank yous from people that we've been watch testing for 4 years or built relationships for 4 years. And to watch that happen is one of the most rewarding parts of the job. And we want you to know that we're going to be there for you throughout the entire process of your educational experience at Richmond. And you don't have to come see us. I'm not saying that's not required, but we're here as another group of people that can help you if needed, right? I always say we're kind of like your campus GPS. If you're struggling a little bit, you take a wrong turn and the GPS says we're going to recalculate. We're recalculating. We can often help you do that. And that ongoing relationship is a big, huge part of that. And that's really the first step. So getting in that interview early, also, knowing that you're welcome to come see us anytime. We definitely want students as they come into campus in August to check out our space. We're located in the refectory building, which is the building at 206 Richmond Way, right sort of behind the football stadium. We've got some really cool testing spaces. We've even added some additional spaces. So we definitely want you to come and check those spaces out and get comfortable with this space, get comfortable with us, and just know that we're always available to help you if you need it. Julia, I'm not sure if at this point you had anything you wanted to add, or, about the initial process, or anything you wanted to add that I have not covered.
Thanks, just available to answer any questions that anyone has.
We can also answer any questions regarding kind of your arrival to campus, anything regarding orientation that we have in the fall. My office works closely with those programs, so I'm more than happy to answer any additional questions that we may have that's outside of disability services as well.
And also know that if you don't think of any tonight, but you want to email us, you can always contact us at disability.richmond.edu. We have an email. You can also check out our website for contact information for both Julia and myself. But just know you can always reach out to us as well, or you can call us. We're available and we do work all summer, like most of the staff here too. So if you're wondering, like we're obviously, there'll be some days we'll be out, but we are here year round, including during the summer. So don't hesitate to reach out to us.
And going off to Dr. Schneider, going off of Dr. Schneider, excuse me. If for some reason you joined our webinar late, or missed some information or like to revisit it, we do post every single one of our recordings of our webinars from our new Spider Summer series onto our YouTube page. It's just New Spiders Orientation. I'll be happy to put that in the chat. So if for some reason you'd like to revisit the content or maybe see what webinars you may have missed up until this point, those are available for you to view as well. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to Dr. Schneider and thank you to Julia for joining us this evening and sharing information from their end. We hope that you have a great rest of whatever time of day it is for you, and we look very much forward to having you here in the fall. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you.